My wife has been peeking at me from around corners and behind furniture. It's gone from weird to terrifying. My wife, Lynn, and I have been together for 6 years and married for 11 months. Our entire history together has been very normal, and never once have I noticed any weird behaviors or red flags. I can't stress enough how out of character this whole thing is for her. Lynn is very kind, intelligent, and thoughtful. She has always been the no-nonsense type of person. Being childish or trying to scare me is not something she would normally do. She does not even like watching horror movies. When we first started dating, she agreed to watch The Shining with me because she knew how much I loved horror. She was so scared that she did not even make it through half of the movie before we had to turn it off. She is not into anything creepy and has never been into pranks. It is just not her cup of tea, which is why all of this felt so strange and so unlike her. I should also add that she has never had any mental health issues, and as far as I am aware, it does not run in her family. I know some people are able to hide their mental health problems, but in the 6 years we have been together, I think I would have seen some sort of sign. 2 months ago, I was in the kitchen making myself some coffee before work. I was running a bit late that morning and knew I would not be able to make it to Dunkin' Donuts for my usual morning fix. I took a sip of my coffee as I hurried down the hall toward the front door when I noticed Lynn peeking at me from around the corner ahead of me. I could only see her eyes and a strand of her long, dark hair hanging against the wall. The rest of her body was concealed behind the corner. I nearly spilled my coffee when I saw her and ended up burning the hell out of my lips. "Geez, Lynn," I said, wiping a few drops of coffee from my pants. "You scared the shit out of me." She immediately popped out of view like a little kid who had been caught. I heard her scurry off toward the living room, and by the time I got to the front door, she was out of sight. It was really weird and totally out of character for her, but I also found it kind of funny that she was being more playful and a little less serious. I shouted that I loved her and called her a weirdo. As I shut the door behind me, I heard her laughing. Her behavior was odd, but it certainly was not something to call a priest over. I forgot about it by lunch, and by the time I got home, she was her normal self. I did not bring it up, and neither did she. Life went on. The next incident happened 3 days later. It was around 2 a.m., and I had woken up to get a drink. I was standing at the kitchen island with a jug of orange juice in hand when I felt a strong sensation that I was being watched. I looked down at the floor and saw my wife's smiling face staring back at me. She was peeking from the other side of the island, staring up at me with wide, unblinking eyes and grinning like the Cheshire Cat. I screamed, not out of irritation, but fear. For some reason in that moment, I was genuinely scared. At the sound of my scream, Lynn scuttled backward out of view, her hands and feet smacking the tile floor as she hurried out of the kitchen on all fours. I did not run after her or yell. I just stood there frozen in shock, wondering what the hell had possessed her to do that. It took me longer than I would like to admit to go back upstairs. When I got to our bedroom, Lynn was lying on her side, asleep, or at least pretending to be. I stood there for a while watching her breathing to be sure. I climbed into bed expecting her to jump out at me, but she did not move at all. The next morning, after handing her a mug of coffee and kissing her cheek, I asked her about it. I kept my tone light. She frowned like she had no idea what I was talking about. When I pointed to the spot on the floor by the kitchen island, she burst out laughing. She laughed so hard that I could not help but join her. She teased that we were even. We went to work like nothing had happened, but the image of her grinning at me stuck with me. After that, I started seeing her peeking at me more and more, from behind the couch, from behind the curtains. Once she even hid inside her grandmother's old trunk at the foot of our bed, peeking out with half her face visible. When I asked her why she was doing it, she did not answer. She just slowly closed the lid and shut herself inside. I walked away disturbed, hoping she would get tired of the game. She stopped for 2 weeks, and I thought it was over. Then one night she told me, maybe I've just gotten better at it. That was when the paranoia set in. I began checking corners and doors, constantly uneasy in my own home. A few days ago, things escalated. She appeared behind the shower curtain while I was showering, grinning at me with wide red eyes, makeup running down her face. I locked myself in the bathroom for over an hour, terrified. When I finally prepared to leave, I heard a moan and saw her peeking at me from the closet door. That was when I ran. I fled the house half naked and drove to my brother's place, shaking the entire way. I stayed there, unable to sleep, replaying everything in my head. The next morning I saw her face pressed against my brother's window, smiling at me. She disappeared before anyone else could see her. I turned off my phone, overwhelmed and terrified. But eventually I read her messages. None of them acknowledged what she had done. They were loving, normal, wrong. I stayed another night. When my sister-in-law told me Lynn had stopped by that morning, I felt dread sink into my bones. She had not come inside. She had just watched. I called her mother, desperate for answers, but she refused to help me. Her only advice was to seek professional help, said with an urgency that unsettled me. Eventually, my brother and I returned to the house together. The smell hit us first. Rot. Darkness. Silence. We searched every room. Upstairs, we found shattered glass and finally the source of the stench. Inside the closet were dozens of eyeballs, laid out neatly in pairs. Small ones, animal ones. My stomach turned. As we stood there, my brother froze. Under the bed, curled on her side, watching us with childlike excitement, was my wife. She smiled. She moaned softly. She trembled with excitement. I tried to talk to her. I tried to help her. When I reached out, she slashed my arm with a shard of glass. Her attention shifted to my brother, her expression turning predatory. That was when I understood. Whatever was peeking at me all this time, whatever was smiling at me from corners and closets, was no longer the woman I married, and it had been watching us the whole time.